How can a single nation stretch across more than 17,000 islands, 3 time zones and hundreds of cultures, and still call itself one country? For centuries, outsiders fought to control these islands, lured by spices worth more than gold. Colonizers came and went, wars erupted, and independence seemed impossible. Even after freedom, Indonesia faced a new challenge. How do you govern a country that's mostly ocean? Yet somehow, against all odds, Indonesia not only survived, it's now rising to become a global economic giant. How can a country scattered across more than 17,000 islands even exist as one nation? Just think about that for a moment. Most countries are built on a single piece of land, maybe two if they are split by seas. But Indonesia, it's the largest archipelago on Earth, stretching across 3 different time zones, covering an area as wide as the distance from New York to London. Now here's where the mystery gets deeper. For centuries, these islands weren't united at all. They had different rules, languages, and cultures. Some islands were home to powerful kingdoms like Majapahit or Srivijaya, while others followed local chieftains or sultans. On one island, you would hear Javanese, on another Balinese, on another Bugis, and so on. In fact, Indonesia today still has more than 700 living languages, making it one of the most linguistically diverse places in the world. And yet, despite all these differences, today every one of those islands flies under the same red and white flag. They call themselves Indonesia. It's as if thousands of puzzle pieces somehow clicked together to form one picture. But here's the catch. Unity didn't just magically appear. Powerful outsiders once looked at these islands not as a nation, but as a treasure chest to be plundered. Spices, coffee, rubber, the riches of the tropics made Indonesia the most coveted real estate in the world. So before we understand how Indonesia united, we need to uncover who controlled these islands and why empires fought so hard to own them. Did you know Indonesia was once called the most lucrative real estate in the world? And it wasn't because of oil or gold, it was because of spices. In the 1500s, nutmeg, cloves, and pepper from these islands were worth more than silver in Europe. Whoever controlled them could control global trade. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to arrive, but they didn't stay dominant for long. Soon, the Dutch East India Company (VOC) took over and built one of the richest trading empires in history. Jakarta, then called Batavia, became the heart of their operations. For the locals, though, this meant centuries of harsh colonial rule. Farmers were forced to grow cash crops like coffee and sugar. Rubber plantations drained resources. The island's wealth flowed outward while Indonesians lived in poverty. But history had a twist. In World War II, the Japanese invaded and pushed the Dutch out. At first, some Indonesians welcomed Japan as liberators, but occupation soon turned brutal. Yet in that chaos, something important happened. For the first time, Indonesians across different islands saw the possibility of ruling themselves. So when Japan surrendered in 1945, a new question burned. Could this scattered collection of islands really declare independence? Here's the twist. There was no single capital, no united army, and no clear leader trusted by all. And yet, just days later, 2 men would step forward with a bold declaration that changed everything. On August 17, 1945, in a modest house in Jakarta, 2 men, Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta, took a microphone and read a short proclamation. Indonesia was now independent. It lasted less than a minute, yet it changed the course of history. But almost nobody believed they could hold the country together. Why? Because Indonesia wasn't a single unified land. It was a patchwork of thousands of islands, hundreds of languages, and dozens of religions. Java alone held more than half the population, while outer islands had their own leaders and traditions. Some doubted whether anyone outside Java would even accept this new nation. On top of that, there was external pressure. The Dutch weren't ready to give up their prized colony. They launched military campaigns to reoccupy Indonesia, and for 4 long years, the young republic fought for survival. The world's major powers like the US and Britain were skeptical. They assumed Indonesia would collapse back into chaos. And yet, a single idea kept the nation alive: Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which means unity in diversity. It wasn't about erasing differences, but about celebrating them under one flag. Slowly, provinces began to see themselves not just as Javanese, Balinese, or Sumatrans, but as Indonesians. But declaring independence is one thing. Governing a country stretched across oceans is another. So how did Indonesia actually manage to rule 17,000 islands? Imagine being the president of Indonesia. Your country stretches wider than the continental US, but half of it is ocean. How do you govern such a place without it falling apart? The solution began with Jakarta as the political and administrative center. From there, a system of provinces was set up, each with its own local governors but still tied to the central government. This balance between autonomy and control helped to prevent rebellion while keeping unity. But politics alone wasn't enough. The real masterstroke was language. Out of more than 700 local tongues, Indonesia chose Bahasa Indonesia as the national language. It wasn't the mother tongue of most citizens, but it was simple, neutral, and became the glue binding the nation together. Suddenly, an islander from Sumatra could communicate with someone from Papua. Still, words can't connect islands. You need ships, planes, and roads. So Indonesia invested in infrastructure, ferries, bridges, airports, and military bases. The army itself became a unifying force, ensuring that distant provinces felt the presence of the state. Through these strategies, Indonesia didn't just survive as a nation, it created one of the most improbable success stories in modern geopolitics. But here's the bigger twist. Holding a country together is one challenge. Turning it into a rising global economy is another. Indonesia isn't just surviving, it's thriving. With over 270 million people, it's the fourth most populous country in the world, and most of its citizens are under 30. That means a young, energetic workforce ready to drive growth for decades to come. Its land and seas are packed with resources: nickel for electric car batteries, palm oil for global food supply, coal and natural gas for energy, and fertile soil for agriculture. These resources feed not just Indonesia's economy, but much of the world's. And then there's identity. Indonesia is home to the largest Muslim-majority population on Earth, yet it balances tradition with modernity. Skyscrapers rise in Jakarta, while ancient temples still stand tall in Yogyakarta. This blend makes Indonesia unique, a nation proud of its roots while eager to claim a place in the future. By 2050, some forecasts predict Indonesia could be the fourth largest economy in the world, standing alongside giants like the US, China, and India. But here's the big question. Can this unity last forever? Or will the varied diversity that made Indonesia strong one day test its survival again? If you found this fascinating, check out my video on Malaysia's economy, a country often compared to Indonesia but with a very different story. Thanks for watching, mate, and thanks for subscribing.